I think there were guys that elevated their game more back then. I think the term superstar, I mean, the guy that makes the cut today gets 12 grand. So there's a huge difference.
At 83 years old, Raymond Floyd is finally breaking his silence on gambling allegations that have haunted his legendary career, and what he is revealing about being broke now is shaking professional golf. This four-time major champion stood toe-to-toe with the greatest names, but behind the trophies was a dark, secret economy. Was this just bets between friends, or was Floyd using money to destroy people? If you are loving this deep dive into golf history, make sure to give this video some hype and let us know in the comments what other legends you want us to investigate next. Your support keeps these stories coming. The Raymond Floyd the public saw was only half the truth. Behind the televised glory, there was a predatory system running through the PGA Tour, where Tuesday practice rounds mattered more than Sunday final rounds, where intimidation was a weapon, and where one man stood at the center of it all, cold and calculating, using financial pressure as his primary competitive advantage. In 2026, Floyd sat down and did something he had never done before. He pulled back the curtain. At 83, with nothing left to lose and no reputation left to protect, he started talking about the real tour, the one that existed in the shadows while cameras captured the sanitized version for television. He described a world where corporate golf has made modern players soft, where the gentleman's game was always a marketing myth, and where the actual power on tour had nothing to do with FedEx Cup points or sponsorship deals. The real tournament, Floyd explained, started on Tuesday. That is when the Wolfpack came out to play, when the money players separated themselves from the pretenders, when fortunes changed hands in practice rounds that the public never saw. Modern golf looks clean because it has been scrubbed clean, Floyd suggested, but his generation lived in the raw truth of competition where your swing could cost you everything you owned. What Floyd is revealing now is not just nostalgia. It is a confession, and to understand why his words carry so much weight, you have to go back to where it all started, to the moments that built the predator who would dominate the secret economy for decades. Number 5. North Carolina in the 1950s and 60s was not a place where golf was played for trophies. It was played for survival. Floyd grew up near Fort Bragg in a culture where Calcuttas and gambling dens were the real training ground, where the value of your swing was measured exclusively by how much cash it could separate from an opponent. This was hustler golf played in the shadows, where reputations were built on ruthlessness, and money changed hands faster than scorecards could be signed. Floyd learned early that the physical mechanics of a shot mattered far less than the psychological pressure of the wager. He watched men with perfect swings completely crumble when the money became personal, when the bet crossed from friendly to threatening, when losing meant real consequences. Floyd watched it all and absorbed the lesson. That lesson carved itself into Floyd's competitive DNA. Before he ever stepped onto the PGA Tour, he understood that golf was a weapon and money was the ammunition. The rumors that followed him for years, the whispers that he traveled the southern circuits under false names in his early 20s, were finally confirmed in his 2026 reflections. Floyd admitted he used pseudonyms to trap local country club champions, hiding his skill level so he could enter matches for sums that exceeded a standard year's salary. This was the tactic of elite money players like Titanic Thompson, who built entire careers on anonymity and deception. Floyd caught his marks in a trap of overconfidence, then dismantled them with surgical precision. By the time he joined the PGA Tour in 1963, he was not arriving as a hopeful rookie. He was arriving as a seasoned predator, entering a room full of marks. Number 4. The match that defined Floyd's philosophy happened in the mid-1960s at Horizon Hills Country Club in El Paso, and it involved a young assistant professional named Lee Trevino, who was cleaning golf carts and picking up range balls. The match was orchestrated by gamblers from Tennyson Park, including the legendary Titanic Thompson, who convinced Floyd to play against someone Floyd assumed would be easy money. Floyd arrived with the brash confidence of a newly qualified PGA Tour professional. When Floyd arrived and asked who his opponent was, Trevino met him in the parking lot to take his clubs and said simply, "Me." That was the first shock. The second shock came when Floyd realized this was not a friendly round but a 36-54 hole battle involving thousands of dollars in side bets, with Floyd putting $1,000 of his own money on the line. That was a massive sum for a young pro in 1966, and Floyd expected to collect easily. Instead, he discovered a masterful shot maker who was entirely unfazed by pressure. Floyd fired a 66 in the first round and lost by 3 strokes when Trevino shot 63. The stakes doubled. Floyd came back with a 65 and lost again to another 63. The pattern repeated round after round, with Floyd shooting incredible golf and still getting beaten. The match finally came down to an 18-foot eagle putt on the final hole. Floyd made it to shoot 63 and beat Trevino's 64, allowing him to escape town even. This encounter was a turning point. It reinforced the Iceman persona. The realization that Floyd could compete in a world where a single putt determined his entire net worth, but it also taught him the cynical lesson of never playing a man he did not know for big money. More importantly, it showed him what he needed to become: colder, more careful, and more willing to use money pressure as a weapon against opponents who were not as battle-tested. Number 3. The Tuesday money game was where the real tour happened, and Floyd was at the center of the Wolfpack, an elite group of money players that included names like Lanny Wadkins and Trevino. Floyd has confirmed in his recent reflections that the side action in these Tuesday practice rounds frequently dwarfed the official tournament prize money. While the public watched weekend rounds for $40,000 purses, while television cameras captured polite handshakes and respectful gallery applause, the Wolfpack was playing Tuesday games where $100,000 could change hands in a single session. This created a shadow hierarchy that the television cameras never captured, a parallel tour running underneath the official one where different rules applied and different men held power. The real power on tour rested with those who could win the Tuesday cash, and Floyd dominated that world so completely that his fellow pros gave it a name. They called it the Floyd tax. Playing with Raymond Floyd on Tuesday meant you were going to pay one way or another. This was not just about money. It was psychological warfare. Floyd admitted that his gambling was about ownership. If he took your cash on Tuesday, he believed he had already beaten you for the rest of the week. He knew that when you stood over a crucial putt on Sunday, you would be thinking about the money you lost to him 3 days earlier. The swing breaks when the financial wound is still fresh, and Floyd understood that better than anyone. He did not just want to win a trophy. He wanted to own the mental fortitude of his peers. He looked for marks among the field, players who were talented but lacked nerves of steel, and he used their own money to destroy their confidence before the official tournament even started. The public saw a gentleman's game, but inside the locker room, it was a predatory ecosystem where the elite were actively hunting each other for psychological dominance and financial control. Number 2. The darkest story in Floyd's history did not happen on a famous course or during a major championship. It happened in Philadelphia, and it reveals the ruthless reality of the secret economy. According to accounts from tour insiders and locker room staff, Floyd would often seek out arrogant local players who fancied themselves hustlers, then dismantle them with terrifying efficiency. In one specific match in the early 1960s, a player named Steve challenged Floyd, doubling the wager to a sum estimated between $5,000 and $15,000. A fortune at the time. Floyd ripped this guy apart. At one point on a par 3, Floyd hit his ball to 10 feet while Steve took 11 strokes just to reach the green. When it came time to settle the debt, Steve did not have the money. Floyd's response was not professional understanding. He allegedly told Steve he knew people who would handle the situation, and what followed was not a friendly resolution. When Steve offered his car, Floyd dismissed it as garbage. When Steve offered his clubs, Floyd wanted something more personal. The debt settlement turned ugly and humiliating, involving Steve's wife in a way that became hushed locker room legend. Floyd later joked to colleagues that the woman stayed with him for several weeks or months, claiming he provided her more trips over the mountain in 1 hour than her husband had in years. This story underscores the Iceman reputation as a man who played for ownership, not just of the scoreboard, but of the person. It shows a level of ruthlessness that went far beyond competitive golf and entered the territory of predatory exploitation. Floyd used the weight of financial ruin to take whatever he wanted, and the culture of the tour allowed it to happen in the shadows. Number 1. The 1982 PGA Championship at Southern Hills should be remembered for Floyd's opening round 63, which included 9 consecutive threes and remains one of the greatest single rounds in major championship history. The round was a mathematical marvel, a display of precision that should have been impossible under tournament pressure. But the 2026 revelations have exposed the scandal that nearly ended Floyd's career that week. Floyd has finally confirmed the rumors of a specific incident involving a massive bet with a prominent businessman during the tournament. The wager was so large, reportedly in the 6-figure range, that it triggered an internal investigation by the PGA Tour. This was not small money. This was not a friendly Nassau bet between colleagues. This was career-ending money, the kind of sum that could destroy a man's reputation and livelihood if it became public. The cynical underbelly of the victory was that a peer seeking to save their own reputation nearly leaked the details to the press. That betrayal would have likely led to a lifetime ban, similar to what Pete Rose faced in baseball. Floyd was playing that week under the shadow of a potential permanent expulsion from professional golf. The pressure was not just the heat of Southern Hills or the challenge from a young Fred Couples. It was the knowledge that one wrong move, one leaked detail, could destroy everything he had built. Floyd's caddy that week, Dolphus Hull, famously earned more money than stars like Jack Nicklaus and Tom Watson, who made the cut. A reflection of the side action and hustler's tax that Floyd collected. The caddies were often facilitating these wagers, and their loyalty was bought with the spoils of the Tuesday games. Floyd won the championship with a 3-day record total of 200 before a nervous final round 72, securing the victory while his entire career hung by a thread. This was the ultimate test of the money player nerve, and Floyd passed it. But the cost was a secret he carried for decades. The 1976 Masters deserves its own detailed examination in this entire story, because while the public saw an 8-stroke dominant victory where Floyd led wire to wire and tied the 72-hole scoring record, the dark truth was that the green jacket was arguably secondary to the side action Floyd had riding on his own performance. Contemporaries recall that the Iceman stare, that unblinking wide-eyed focus that became his signature trademark, was more intense that week than at any other point in his career. Floyd allegedly had so much side action on himself that he could not afford to lose. The pressure was not just the prestige of a major championship or the glory of wearing the green jacket. It was the threat of total financial collapse, the possibility of losing everything he had built. From a historical perspective, what the world saw was a man who had his entire net worth riding on 6-foot putts. This level of self-betting was technically a violation of tour ethics, but it was the fuel for Floyd's greatest triumph. He did not just beat the field, he dismantled it because the cost of failure was personally ruinous. The 1976 Masters was a masterclass in how a gambler uses the threat of financial loss to create legendary focus and ruthless execution. The locker room betting boards that Floyd described in his reflections add another layer to the institutional complicity. Players would bet on who would miss the cut, who would choke on the back nine, even the specific failures of their colleagues. It was predatory from every angle, a culture where your peers were actively hoping for your worst moments because they had money riding on your collapse. This reveals an underbelly where the tour's elite were actively wagering on the downfall of their peers, turning professional golf into something closer to a blood sport than a gentleman's game. Perhaps most damning is Floyd's suggestion that the PGA Tour hierarchy, specifically commissioners like Dean Beeman, were likely aware of the extent of this gambling culture. As long as the public saw a gentleman's game and television networks remained happy, the officials looked the other way. The purity of the sport was a marketing construct, while the reality was a high-stakes, unregulated gambling market operating with tacit approval from governing bodies. So why is Floyd talking now? At 83, he is bitter about the corporate sanitization of modern golf. He looks at today's tour with guaranteed money and sponsor-friendly environment and sees weakness. He argues that without the risk of playing for your own money, modern golfers lack the psychological calluses his generation developed on the Tuesday circuit. They have never felt the terror of standing over a 6-foot putt, knowing that missing it means you cannot pay rent. They have never experienced the sick feeling of watching an opponent drain a birdie putt while your cash sits in his pocket. He has publicly criticized the World Golf Hall of Fame for lowering the bar by inducting players like Fred Couples and Colin Montgomery, whom he believes do not possess the numbers or the money player pedigree required for the honor. For Floyd, the Hall of Fame should be reserved for the Icemen, those who survived the predatory culture of the 70s and 80s, not those who benefited from what he sees as the soft corporate era. His complaints sound like a hustler missing a world he could control, a man who thrived in chaos and resents the order that replaced it. But here is the truth that matters most. The curtain is finally being pulled back. For decades, golf fans believed they were watching a pure sport, a game of honor and tradition. What they were actually watching was a carefully managed illusion designed to hide a ruthless underground economy. Floyd's confessions are not just about one man's career. They are about an entire era that operated on predatory principles, where intimidation was strategy, where money was used to break competitors before they ever teed off, and where the governing bodies knew exactly what was happening and chose to protect the brand instead of the players. The fact that we are finally learning the truth means the sport is growing up. It means the history books are being rewritten with honesty instead of mythology. It means future generations will understand that the golden era was not golden at all. It was dark, dangerous, and built on the backs of gamblers who were playing for survival. Raymond Floyd never went broke, and that is perhaps his greatest achievement in a culture that destroyed so many others. He was the most successful survivor of a predatory ecosystem, a man who understood that on the professional tour, the real money was not in the trophy. It was in the man you beat to get it. And now, finally, the world knows the full story. If you found this investigation as shocking as we did, smash that like button, subscribe for more untold golf history, and drop a comment letting us know which legend we should investigate next. The truth is always more interesting than the myth, and we are just getting started.